haven't. So there we go. So, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Carolyn.
Okay, so I'm Carolyn, obviously. Glasgow, born and bred, and I met my husband in Spain over 20 years ago. So yeah, we run a business together. We've got 4 kids. So life is pretty busy, which is probably part of the reason that it took so long to write this book. But it's something that I've been interested in doing for a while, and I'm glad I finally got there. It's not always easy living in a multicultural family, and I'm sure a few of those things come across in the book, but yep. Yeah, it's worth it, and hopefully other people find it interesting to learn more about Romania from a Scots point of view.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. So what's your business? What is it your husband and you do with your business?
Yeah, so we work with restaurants and takeaways. It's called Time to Dine, and we do online bookings. We do a point of sale system. So yeah, lots of arms and legs have grown to the business. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what it said, and I think there's probably the writers among us who are here will all appreciate the challenges of day jobs, particularly if you're running a business, and try to find time to write.
Yeah,
and it's not an easy thing. You really have to be probably quite disciplined at times to find the space. And like I say, 4 children. And amongst that mix as well, we had a little thing called kind of lockdown and a pandemic that happened to hit.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, this is it. I'll definitely have time for doing.
Oh, no, please don't do this to me today. Oh.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're back. I'm back. Yeah, Carol and I were just saying we've had I have had some internet issues in the past couple of days, but it seemed to have been quite stable today. And just as that, here we go. So if I disappear, Carolyn's going to read a bit of her book just to keep you entertained if it drops. So fingers crossed. It stays right now. Internet stays stable for the rest of the time. So the pandemic, we thought we might have helped you to get it finished, but other things.
No, I had homeschool to deal with and trying to sort out arguments between kids and fun stuff like that, plus all the stress and worry that everyone had. So it didn't really prove to be the ideal writing scenario.
But you've got there now. We're so proud of you. So congratulations. That's a great achievement. So tell us a little bit about what your inspiration was then for the book. You've said that you met your husband obviously years ago. So what inspired you to actually write the story?
Well, it's been at the back of my mind for even longer than the years it's taken me to write it, because I'm not a Romanian, but for a long time the media was really bad about not just Romania but immigrants in general, and painted a very negative picture, and it just really annoyed me. And I'm a Scot, so I could only imagine how it must feel to people that were from other places. Then all the Trump and Brexit and anti-immigration, it just started to feel like I really don't like this. I'd like to try and do something about it. Obviously, we've got kids growing up here who are Scottish and Romanian. I don't want them to ever feel ashamed of that. I want them to be proud of both sides of their heritage. And also, at one point I was on a business accelerator and I plucked up the courage to do a kind of TED talk thing based on Romania, and I called it "Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover," because I feel that's what people do, myself included. I'll be honest, before I met Florina, I knew nothing about Romania, absolutely nothing, and probably only knew about orphans or Bugescu, didn't know much else. And I felt it would be good if people really understood there was a lot more to Romania than that. So I did this whole presentation showing all the lovely places that you can go, all the culture, things that people just don't know about. And I could see the visible shock on the audience, and people came up to me afterwards and they're like, wow, I had no idea that Romania was like that, and it looks like an amazing place to visit. And So I thought, okay, yeah, I could make an impact on people if they, dug a bit deeper than what's portrayed in the media.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, as I say, that's probably the point where the cogs started turning about this book. And I did want to know more about how Florian grew up. He's only a year older than me, but our lifestyles were so completely different. All the things that he lived through, and I just found it absolutely fascinating to learn more about it. And hopefully other people will find it interesting as well, that see a different way of life.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree, Carolyn. And I mean, if somebody said to me about Romania, my first thought is probably the terrible pictures that we all saw about the orphanages and the children crying in the cots, and how bleak everything was, because that was what was then depicted, to us, a few years ago. So well done, I think, because you definitely have opened my eyes, reading through the book to different aspects of the culture. How challenging was it though then to take the kind of family history, your husband's kind of family story, and fictionalize it, because it's not absolute chapter and verse of everything. You've taken it and created a novel from it. Mm-hmm. So I suppose why did you decide to do that rather than really just write his his biography, autobiography or something?
Well, obviously there's bits of it that did happen, but most of it I've just kind of more or less put myself in his shoes, tried to imagine what it would have been like. I've did a huge amount of research, probably too much research, but once I started digging, I just found it absolutely fascinating, and I hope that makes the book more authentic. That that was another challenge. I felt as though, do I really have the right to write this book? I didn't live through it. I'm not Romanian, but obviously Romanian people are a huge part of my life. I visited Romania many, many times. We had a wedding here and in Romania, so I know all about the differences there as well. And who knows, maybe if I write this whole background story, people might be interested in a follow-up. Who knows?
So how challenging was the research then? I mean, how did you kind of get into the stuff that you didn't necessarily know before?
Well, some of it I just came across kind of by chance. Like there's a bit in my book about how it was this one woman who, did the voiceover for every single movie, whether it was big action heroes or anything. It was this one woman, because in Romania at that time they were only allowed to watch basically Romanian TV and a lot of propaganda. So any kind of American movies or anything were not strictly speaking allowed, and it was truck drivers and things that would bring them in. So this woman was the one that had the voice for every single movie, and I just found that really amusing, and it must have been so bizarre to watch that. Arnold Schwarzenegger or whoever it was with
this woman's
voice. So that was one thing that I found very interesting. So, I don't gloss over that it was a hard time to grow up. It wouldn't have been a realistic book if I had made out that everything was wonderful in Romania. But hopefully I've got that balance right, that yes, it was a challenging time, but people survived, people supported one another, they tried to be optimistic, and that's why I've added in these more kind of humorous parts to try and balance out the really tough bits.
Yeah, but I think you've actually managed to really I think do that. I think you've done that really well. I think you have kind of got a good balance in there, but it is a bit of social history. I mean, that's the thing. So you're reading it, and for me, the kind of fascinating bits where like say, understanding the difference in sort of customs and culture around things like Christmas, and and that. So did that was that something that your husband kind of like, did he talk and describe what it was like for him, just from Christmas, and then so that you could understand how different it was?
Yeah, Florian's not always the most communicative. It's a lot of the time it's from other Romanians. I've heard things. But I do know that Christmas now is like huge celebration for Romanians and his Orthodox faith. So, but during the communism time, they tried to block religion completely, although most people still kind of celebrated it in the background. So I found that whole contrast between then and now quite interesting.
Yeah.
And also the way that, you know, if children just received some small toys and some fruit and everything, that it still meant so much to them. And I think that's quite important now because, I mean, my own kids included, they just expect so much now and don't value it as much. So I think it's quite important to remember that you can still be happy with, you know, not a lot.
Yeah.
People assume that growing up in Romania must have been terrible, but from the people I know, that's not what I've heard.
Yeah.
So,
and I suppose
I want that to come across.
Yeah, I mean, I have, you know, in the past done a lot of stuff around sort of happiness and looked at different. There's things around different cultures and experience, and some of the poorest countries in the world have got the happiest people. Because they aren't like striving for the, you know, oh, they have to have the new car and the best of holidays and this, you know, their house looking immaculate like a show home, and you know, so when those material things, I'm not saying that, you know, I think there's times when you read stuff in your book and it was obviously really, really tough, but you know, that's that sense of maybe having less but getting something is still, it was a kind of celebration, and you know, depicting the whole kind of rationing that they, you know, people went through, you know, and you think, because for us, you think about rationing, you go back to war times, you know, and think, well, that's
exactly.
such a long time.
I could only compare it to, you know, my own grandparents and things like that, living through it. So to me, for someone my age to have lived through that was a kind of bizarre concept. So it was interesting for me to try and, you know, learn more about how that was, and, you know, the huge queues that people had to wait in, and then all the shortages. It definitely was a very difficult time. That's something we managed to get through. So
yeah. And so your book obviously is set when you know, you're it's really told through the eyes of the children. I mean, that's the thing. It really is that, you know, the kind of children are the main kind of depictors of the kind of story and the characters that are going through it. And I loved, there's a bit about, you know, watching how they were watching Dallas as well. That Dallas was like you said about the films, but Dallas was the go-to thing that they got to watch. You know?
Yeah, so, I mean, anybody from Romania, in my experience, that you mentioned that to, they'll immediately light up, you know, remembering about it. And a few years ago, we actually went to visit the Dallas set, you know, and it meant quite a lot to Florian, I think, that he'd managed to go there. So it's because that was one of the very, very few things that they were actually allowed to watch, bizarrely, compared to all the other pretty dull things that were on the TV.
Yeah. So I suppose that's the thing, is it's kind of hard probably for us to imagine in our, well, maybe not because of how things have been in the last year. You know, when you think that suddenly we've been used to so much freedom and being able to just, you watch what you like, do what you like, go where you wanted to. And what it made me reflect on was, well, over the last year, you know, the government suddenly said, right, okay, you can't leave your house, you have to stay in. Now, they were telling us, obviously, there was a pandemic going on, it was for our health. But you were aware that Ceausescu had, and the kind of communist kind of regime had changed so many things for the Romanians, and that they had, you know, gradually put things in, you know, to say you can't do this. We don't have to have religion, so we should all just be atheists. And we go from being farmers to we want to be, you know, industrialists. And you know, I think the thing that really kind of struck me was what was put into how the children would then learn and be involved in certain, you know, be brought into certain like structures and through education and processes, that culture, you know, that was then going to be followed. I mean, that's the thing. It was brought in. So when you were, you know, I think, so were you surprised at, you know, anything that you uncovered as you were finding out more about how people actually just, you know, kind of went along? I suppose for a long time they kind of went along with things that were there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is quite hard to get your head around that, but I think since they weren't really getting much information from elsewhere, maybe a lot of them just thought it was normal. They had this Hawks program in the schools where they were taught, basically to be very patriotic, and pictures of Ceausescu on the walls and all this kind of thing. And actually, the funny thing was, recently there was a big debate about they were trying to get kids in the UK to sing a song called the Union song.
Yes, yep.
And I really didn't like that when
No.
I thought, no, I don't like the sounds of this. And it did kind of echo what I'd been researching, obviously to a lesser extent, but trying to force ideas on kids at such a young age, it just doesn't seem right. But as I've said in the book, I mean, Florian included, he enjoyed it at the time. Some of the values they tried to teach them were good values.
Yep.
But at the same time, there's also this wee bit of darkness about, trying to let them know how wonderful Ceausescu is and not to challenge any ideas that they were trying to force on them, I suppose.
Yeah. So from your experience now, obviously you say you still, you go to Romania and you're and have family and connections there. How different does your husband see it now? Looking back from his childhood and the kind of stories here, how different is life? After Ceausescu kind of toppled and communism went.
Yeah, I would say it's completely different. I mean, like every country, there's still problems, but I mean, there's so many lovely places that people don't know about. I would say obviously people are a lot more open-minded now, and yeah, I've been welcomed there with very open arms. People are very generous, hardworking. That's another thing that a lot of people think, that Romanians are just coming here, to take jobs, to go on benefits and all this kind of thing. And it's really very unfair, because most of them have got an extremely hard work ethic, and really are a benefit to society rather than the way they're often portrayed.
Yeah. So we've got a question, and that's the thing. If anybody does want to ask a question, please put it in the chat. But I've got a question for you. So Nathaniel's on the call today, and he said Romania is a big country, but we in the West have only really heard of Bucharest. I think that's true. What other places in the country are of interest?
Okay, well, obviously I'm going to say Iași, because that's where my husband's from. It used to actually be the capital, but it's not anymore. So that's up in the north of Romania, and it's a lovely place. There's also Alba Iulia. I don't know if my friend's on here today, but she's from Alba Iulia, which is in Transylvania. That's another thing. I admit I did not know Transylvania was part of Romania. So I find that fascinating as well. That's definitely a place that would recommend visiting. The Black Sea, fantastic beach place to visit. There's lots of places in the mountains. Piatra and Ants have been there, and then you lie in your bed and you hear the wolves out in the woods, which is very interesting. So yeah, there's definitely many places to explore. Food's completely different. Some of it's great, some of it not so good. But
yeah, I was saying the winter vegetable stew that was getting made into the jars and things.
Yeah. So the food's very different, but a lot of it's very, very good. Yeah. So
it's a little travel plug we've been doing here as well for Romania as well. So once people go and read your book, they're all going to want to then kind of go and explore different parts.
There's also a crazy road, I can't even pronounce it properly, Transfaragashan Road, I think that's how you pronounce it, which we went on the last time, and it really looks like a massive big snake. It goes straight through the mountains. It was featured on Top Gear. So if you're a driver, that's definitely worthwhile. Yeah.
Cool. That's great. So you've written, there's little snippets of the language in your book where you've actually used Romanian language. So do you actually speak? I mean, I take it do you speak Romanian?
Yeah. Vorbesc românește, da. Yeah, I speak Romanian with a Scots accent. Most people, if I'm in Romania, are completely taken aback by that. I've also had experiences when I was in a restaurant with Florine and they thought he was the foreigner, and they handed me the menu to try and translate for him, which was a bit odd. But yeah, I'm quite proud of that. I do know quite a lot of Romanian now. Yeah. I had a CD in my car for a while that I listened to, because it's one of these languages, when you read it, it's not really necessarily the way you would expect it to sound. So it's actually better to try and listen to it, I would say.
Yeah, but I think from reading, the way that you've actually told the story and have the characters, having snippets of Romanian speech, you're really able to get the flavour of what that's being said, because the way that you've actually, you've then described something, it's not been a literal translation in brackets afterwards. That's not,
yeah, I guess it was quite a challenge, I think, to know the right amount to put in, because I didn't want people to be completely bamboozled about, and like you say, it would have been a bit silly to then translate it straight afterwards. So I had to kind of think of ways that would make it obvious what it meant in the context. And I did feel it was important to add a few touches of the language into the book.
Yeah, so I think you've definitely done that, and you've done a good job, because I know it's, like I say, that is a challenge. So if anybody else has got any questions that you want to ask, please put it in the chat, and if we're going to have another sort of 5 minutes or so kind of chatting with Carolyn, so there is still a little bit of time to kind of ask her a question. So what's your hopes for the book? Obviously you said a big part of this was kind of cultural and helping people kind of realise that there's more to Romania and Romanians than what we might have known about. So what do you hope the book will do?
Just help people be a bit more understanding, a bit more open-minded. Maybe learn a bit more, not just about Romania, but other places as well. Like I said, I've tried to be honest about it. It wouldn't have worked if I've tried to make Romania to be a perfect place. No place is perfect. But yeah, I think it's important that people understand there's a much bigger picture than what they see on the TV or in the news. Thankfully, it's not. I don't feel as though it's so much now, but there was a time when I felt as though there was so many shock headlines about it, and it just felt so horribly unfair. And I really worried about my own kids seeing that and how they would feel about that. So we've tried to work really hard not to let them feel that they should never feel inferior, or that they've no right to be here, because they've got as much right to be here as anyone else.
Yeah. So have any of your family actually read it? I mean, has your husband read it? Have any of your children read it?
Yeah, some of my family have read it, and they've enjoyed it. Some of them have been to Romania as well, so they know that there's definitely a lot more to it than people realise.
Yeah. So I definitely think it's got me thinking, it's something I need to go and visit. I'd like to explore more. So we've got another couple of questions that have come up in the chat here. John McGee asking, would you be interested in doing a Romanian version for sale in Romania?
That's an interesting question. Yes, if people were interested in reading it, that's something I need to explore a bit more to see if they'd be interested in a Scots perspective on things. It's an option, yeah.
Yeah, it's an option, and that kind of takes in quite nicely into Nathaniel's asking another question: and what is the Romanian view of Scotland? Then
obviously, I'm going to say they think it's wonderful. The downside is the weather, of course. I don't like the rain, but yeah, I mean, I think on the whole, people I know haven't experienced much racism in Scotland, which is great. So as far as I know, the Romanians that I know are very happy here, and they've made friends. My best friend's Romanian, and everyone's Romanian, so yeah.
So, and Margaret has asked, would you use Florian as a character for a follow-up novel set in Romania?
I doubt it, because by the end of the book he'd moved here to be with me. So I'm kind of toying with the idea of his life here. possibly from my point of view. So we'll see what happens.
Yep. So yeah, so Carolyn might then be the lead in her own novel next time then.
Yeah.
Yep. And we've got a few more questions come in. So have you lived in Romania for any time, or was it just for family visits?
There was one summer we stayed there for 2 or 3 months. We stayed there for quite a while, which I felt was very good for me because I definitely picked up a lot of the language then. Because I really did not like feeling like an outsider.
Yeah.
Which I guess is another thing maybe for people coming here. It's very, very difficult to be in a country where you don't know the language, and you start to feel paranoid that everything's been about you when it's maybe nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
So that was that really motivated me to try and learn Romanian. And I guess just being surrounded by it and hearing it so much, you kind of can work out a lot of what it means.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the longest time we went, I think. Yeah.
So, and Helen was asking how you actually met your husband, but we were chatting. It was on holiday then.
It was on holiday in Spain, yeah. At a foam party, believe it or not. It's quite funny because sometimes, I don't know, foam parties don't seem to be such a big thing as they were at the time, you know. So basically it's like you're in a club and they fire big cannons with bubbles basically, and some people have thought I've said a phone party.
Right.
And considering Florian's such an IT person, that maybe would have been more up his street, but at the time it was a phone party that we met at, so I'm quite proud of that. I'm not sure many people could say they met at a phone party, so
that's it. And that meeting at that phone party is responsible for you and your husband being together for all the kind of business stuff that's been going on behind the scenes, all this help that you've got for these 4 children that you're actually taking care of the world. And now we've actually got a book to add to that mix as well. So there you are. Maybe we should try and get back to kind of say, yeah, maybe phone parties are the thing then. We should looking to bring back.
What happened at a phone party.
What about, because this isn't, and I just wanted to touch, this isn't your first foray into writing, because before this, you have got a children's book that you wrote.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote a children's book called The Bankruptcy Fairy, which I illustrated myself as well, but not without your help that time. So it didn't go as well as I'd hoped. So yeah, definitely with the help of Indie Authors World has been much better this time round, and I don't even know if I'd have got to the end without you keep encouraging me, and also meeting up with other authors. I think that's really important. Yeah, because it is quite a lonely thing to do, and you know, when I really started getting serious with it, I thought, oh, I don't know if I'll manage this. It seems such a massive task, but if you're surrounded by other people that have done it, then that's a big motivation.
Yeah, that's it. And and it is a great achievement, because there are, like I say, there are so many people who say, oh, I'd really like to write a book, or I've got an idea for a book, and they never quite manage to do anything with it. And it might be the best story that, you know, we've never heard because it's just still tucked away in a drawer somewhere, or it's, you know, still kind of bumbling around at the back of the head. So so there you are. Carolyn's saying as well, get on and get it written, you know, get stuff out there. Don't be scared. Because we've got people here, like you say, that can support you and encourage you, and that's been it's been the joy for us as part of Indie Authors, just to see, you know, the writers kind of come through and get stuff out. So I'm so happy that we've actually now got this book, and because that's it's been a long time coming. So what's next for you as a writer then, Carolyn? I know there's a little project, kind of side project that's kind of coming soon, but
well, have I to talk about the side project?
No, you can. Yeah, you can. You can give it a little plug just to let folk know what you've been doing something else.
Well, with a few other authors from the Indie Authors, we're doing a wee compilation book with novellas. So I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed that experience. We were given really quite a vague topic to get started with, to try and come up with a story with, and I seriously doubted I'd manage it, but there you go, I've done it now. And we also had a deadline to meet, which again was quite a worry for me, but I've done it. So I think that experience has really been very good for me. It stopped me overthinking, over editing, worrying too much, and just actually getting on with it. So that I think that was a very worthwhile project.
Good. Yep. So what's the book's been called? All Sorts, it'll be available soon, and we're actually publishing it to help kind of fund some of the Callum's Legacy stuff that we do. So so we'll don't worry, you'll all get lots of plugs with this coming in the next few months. Probably not, I think it's due to be out possibly in August. I think we're taking summer holidays, so we need to kind of look at getting it ready for then. Any other writing? I mean, have you got other things that you're planning, or?
Well, a few people have said they would like to know what happens to Florine after that book, so it's definitely in my mind that I'm starting to think about that. Also, the story that I've written for that compilation could be expanded. It could go a bit further, so that's another option. But yeah, I'll just see what happens. Maybe over the summer I can find some time to get started on something else. I definitely think I've got more of the writing bug at the moment, so I don't want that to fade away.
Yeah. That's good. We're pleased to hear about that. So I'm going to read a little. I'm going to read you the blurb from the back then, just so that and folk are saying that they love the cover, because I thought the cover came out really well. I think there was a few goes to kind of get something that was attractive, but I think this has come out. So the blurb says it's a novel about the power of love. Florine was born in Iasi. Is that how we pronounce it?
Yash.
Yash.
Mm-hmm.
So there you are. That's it. You said you read it and you think Romania. As a young boy, he lived through rationing and the harsh conditions of the Ceausescu regime, but always with the love of family and friends to balance out the hardships and mask the struggles. As he gets older, he tries to untangle his own beliefs from those forced upon him. Was a communist way of life a bad thing? Were the stories about the Roma people true? Was life in the West really as depraved as his country would have him believe? Aged 11 on a Christmas day, Florine witnessed the exalted Ceausescu shot to death on TV. The true feelings of the Romanian people finally stripped bare. From that historic moment, he knew his life in Romania would be a changed one. And this is a story of the strength of people in the face of a dictatorship, and how love can sustain people even in the worst of circumstances. Florine's story and that of his family allow you to see behind the curtain. So now they're all going to be rushing out, desperately want to buy this. So where can they get the book? And tell us a little bit about the stuff that you've got going on with the Transylvanian Cafe as well, just before we finish.
Yeah, so at the moment it's on Amazon. Obviously I hope to get it into local bookshops, but things are a bit more tricky at the moment. I've seen it a few places online, so there are other places that you can buy it from. I have teamed up with the Transylvania Cafe on Victoria Road, which is a fantastic place. Very interesting to me because they sell a lot of food and drink that we've all experienced in Romania. They also have a lot of fun events based around Dracula and Transylvania area in particular. They're fully behind the book, which I'm delighted about, and you can also purchase a copy there. So hopefully there'll be a few more things we can partner up with. Seems a good idea, since they have a lot of Scots customers as well, not just Romanians. So it's really perfect.
Fantastic. So, Carol, Claire Miller's asking, can we get a signed copy from you? I mean, have you got if people want to contact you to get a signed copy, is that possible?
I have my website set up, carolynmandacheauthor.com, and I would certainly be able to arrange something through that.
That's great. We'll put it in the chat. We could put it in the chat, and we could do there. And Teresa's obviously on a mission to try selling your book. She was speaking to two lovely Romanian waiters last week when she was in Tyndrum, and they were very interested in your book. So she'll on commission if she sells some. So that's great. Oh, Janice Gilbert's just said she's just bought it. So there you are. There you go. Thank you very much. Great listening to you. Time has gone all too quickly, people are saying. So can I say to everybody, this is kind of your book, a kind of book launch event, probably the first time you've really had an opportunity to come and talk about the book. So if you want to unmute yourselves, you can all do that, and we'll give Carolyn a little round of applause, because I think that would be really nice. So if you can, just... There we go. People are
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, well done. Thank you very much. Well, I just ask if you mute yourselves again, because otherwise I'll kind of probably try and mute some of the buttons as I'm going here, because again the noise just suddenly is deafening when you're online. So thank you so much, Carolyn. That's been great. Lovely to talk to you about the book. Congratulations. We hope it's going to be a great success. Like I said, it's available in all good online bookshops. Basically, we would say get to the Transylvanian Cafe in Victoria Road, in Glasgow. So if anybody wants to go and have a little look there and see what's going on, and we're absolutely delighted. So thank you so much. I really wish you the very best of luck with it.
Okay, thank you, and thanks everyone for joining.
So those of you who, I'm going to just stop the